Good morning, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Oh my gosh, what a great day. The reason why it's a great day because I woke up, I'm alive, I feel good, had some weird dreams about being an animal or weird dreams about two animals, but I don't even remember what it was. It wasn't very vivid. So I'll look that up. About two dogs. So maybe I should look up dog. Um, yeah, yesterday was so interesting. I felt like my biochemistry was fluctuating up and down. So for those of you that are just joining in and not knowing what it is that I'm doing, I'm going through a protocol that I created with the help of my community to reverse the aging process, which wasn't my original plan, but it seems to be like what the outcome is. But it also has made me, or I wouldn't say it made me, it also has helped with my clarity in understanding the human population and what runs them. And so I had a reproductive type of curse issue that I had to figure out and reverse because it was plaguing me. So that's what prompted me to create this protocol, called Jilly Juice. So so I have since reversed my PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and then now I'm going through a string of healing symptoms that I am now talking about and disclosing and annotating my whole journey, so that way you guys can see what would you might be dealing with, based upon your mutations, because everyone's mutations are different. But at least when you look at how I have been dealing with the different layers of healing, you're going to see and deal with your layers of healing, whatever they are, and they will be personal to you based upon your past, present, and then future triggers. So anyways, so the last couple of weeks I have been dealing with hot flashes, like menopausal type of healing symptoms. And it's not menopause, but that's the only way I can explain it. I mean, I say hot flashes, the irritability. So I'm actually remembering, or not remembering, but I'm experiencing what I kind of felt like when I was going through my PMDD. Such fatigue, like whole body fatigue. That was yesterday. The up and down fluctuation of my mood. I was talking to somebody that wants to interview me, and we were going back and forth a little bit. And finally, they figured out how they want to do this, and they wanted to do it this Sunday. But I couldn't commit because I was feeling like crap. I felt yucky, and I'm like, I don't want to commit to something when I'm feeling yucky, because right now I'm going through this fluctuation. And this is one of, like, say 20 or 30 or 40 of the whole thing with these symptoms that I have been reversing. So I mean, like, who knows if this is like the second to the last symptom I'll be reversing. There might be other mutations that I will be dealing with and reversing and taking care of and healing. But yesterday I was very much into this menopausal healing symptom because I'm trying to induce amenorrhea. I've been going back in time when it comes to how my menstruation is. And it used to be like 28, 30 days in between with 3 days on my period. But the last time I had my period, which I thought I was going to get it, I had 49 days in between. That's unheard of for somebody my age, because that type of length of time between each period would be when a person first gets on their period, like they're 17 or 16 or 15. So the fact that I'm seeing changes in my menstruation tells me that there's something going on down there. And then now I'm dealing with these healing symptoms that seem like it's menopausal, but it could be also signs of amenorrhea. But you're not going to see that type of description in the matrix because they're not looking at reversing the aging process and peeling back the time when it comes to reversing someone's menstruation, not getting menopause, but then trying to induce amenorrhea and going through those types of symptoms. So that's what I've been experiencing. So yesterday, yeah. So I'm going to commit to the interview next week, sometime next week. But yeah, that's what happened yesterday. So I've been feeling it, I mean, I haven't had as many hot flashes like I did a couple, like a week or so ago. Now it's just the fatigue where I want to go to sleep, but I can't, but I'm feeling like so tired that I need to. So I've been going to bed like around 7 at night, and then maybe fall asleep around 8 or 9 or 10. And then I'm up in the middle of the night, like around 1. Sometimes I had a little bit of insomnia too, because that's part of the whole menopausal thing is insomnia. And you can read all the symptoms of menopause and see this is what the healing that I'm going through. And so that was my experience yesterday. And you know, craving the sugar. That's right. Yesterday I made banana bread yesterday. The other day I was Googling how to make donut holes. Now I made banana bread yesterday. I licked the bowl a little bit, ate a little bit of the batter because I was feeling so tired. And it was so interesting because then when I ate that sugar, I perked up. Like all the, you know, the weirdness, the fatigue, a little bit of the depression just like went away. Now, I'm not saying that you guys do that because you guys are in a different biochemistry. I'm 2 years into this, almost 3 years. I mean, actually, I'm in 3 years. I'm in my third year. In October will be my full 3 years. So yesterday, you know, because I don't eat a lot. I don't eat a lot. I eat my cabbage. I'll have certain cravings. I'll have cravings for cabbage. And I was really just, you know, wanting to make something that has a bunch of sugar. So, you know, your body needs sugar too. We're not trying to eradicate sugar altogether. But when you are full of candida and fungus, parasites, eating a bunch of sugar when you're way behind the 8 ball isn't a good idea. Okay, but once you get your biochemistry relatively well balanced, you have to have a balance of sugar and salt and nutrients and all that. And that's in those saline bags at the hospital when they're trying to stabilize somebody. It has dextrose, which is some kind of corn sugar. It has saline, which is salt and water. And that's how they get people stabilized when they're totally imbalanced and they're dehydrated when they're sick. It's people wonder like how it is. I'm in the hospital, I get well balanced and I get all stabilized, but then, you know, when I go home, everything goes crappy. Well, it's because they're giving you basically saline with dextrose. They're giving you the right elements to keep your body in balance to at least alleviate those current symptoms. Okay, so yesterday I noticed that when I ate something that was a little sugary, it made me like all energetic for a reason, right? It's a little bit of a trip. So, you know, eventually, you know, you're going to get to a point where you're going to be able to eat the foods that you have been avoiding because if foods affect you, because it's not like it's major poison, it's not like you're eating gallons and gallons of mercury. No, if there is food that everybody eats and some people can't and some people can, then you know the reason why you can't eat certain foods is because you're mutated. Now, if there's a food or something out there that everybody dies from, which is, yeah, if you're taking in large amounts of, not even a food, if something you take in that's a poison and everybody dies from it, then yeah, you probably shouldn't eat that. But if you're eating like, you know, if you're eating gluten and you're eating dairy and you haven't died from it, then you know that's not a poison per se. It may not be good for a person who is very mutated because of the different pathogens out there that your body can't handle. But if you can eat it, it means it's not poisonous. You just happen to have an issue because you're mutated. So what you're trying to now measure on how well you are is if you can eat certain foods that you used to avoid, like the gluten and the dairy and whatever else, processed foods. But you're not going to want to gravitate towards it. But but sometimes your biochemistry will. Like yesterday when I made the banana bread, and I had the frozen bananas in my freezer. I had all the ingredients because I've been making, you know, bakery pie crust for my husband. I've been making him a lot of really interesting food. I made him, I think, what did I make him? Chicken pot pie and all that. And sometimes I use like the puff pastry from the freezer, and then sometimes I'll make my own. So I have a bunch of flour. So anyways, but I only eat like one slice and that's it. I don't eat the whole loaf, right? So that's, you know, so my body gravitates towards things and then it doesn't. It's based upon the biochemistry. So that's where I'm at. You guys are going to be in different places relative to where you are in the protocol and your biochemistry. So this also leads me to the whole thing about communication. And, you know, after, you know, once I have figured out the protocol and what I figured out where the major issues are is hormones, because hormones are not optimal on a daily basis. And it seems now that we realize what drives people and what causes people to die, it's the fact that their hormones are getting triggered on a daily, minute basis. And I figured out what caused me to be this crazy child that you couldn't control. I was a very hard to control child. Okay. And the reason what my situation was because I came from a war-torn country inducing a lot of adrenaline. So I was always running from one thing to another, couldn't focus. And man, I was just, and people that have kids like that they are just running from here to there, to there, to there, they're on adrenaline. They're cute, yes. But when they're running from here to there to here as a kid, imagine them trying to grow up and sit in a classroom where you have to focus. And you're trying to channel that kid's energy and they're full of adrenaline. It's not being a kid in some way. No, it's the fact that they have all of this pent up adrenaline that is just needing an outlet. And the diet that the parents have their kids on is not helping them. It induces more adrenaline. So that's the things that I've figured out as far as hormones. And then the psychopaths, they may have lack of a hormone or too much of a hormone. I mean, when you see the psychopaths are all addicted to porn, or sex seems to be the presiding thing, like the thing with Chris Watts, the thing with Jodi Arias, heard about Jeffrey Dahmer, the oxytocin hormone was so prominent. All these different psychopath killers were full of crazy ass hormones. And then we have people that commit crimes in our society that have, different levels of it. That's probably more than those that don't commit crimes. So we're seeing that hormones are really what runs our world, and we can destroy people with our hormones. The most unmistakable hormone that is so prevalent that gets people snowed in to somebody else's manipulations is the love hormone, the oxytocin, because it is something that is so addictive. It's the pleasure hormone. It's a let me kill you with kindness, please don't hurt animals hormone. It's a whole let me find a way to control you with love type of hormone. And I realized that that's what triggered me a lot with the empaths, who are so full of the love hormone that you're just like, dude, that's just too much love. Can you cut down on the love? Yes, the world may need more love because we have psychopathic things, but the world also needs adrenaline too when you know that there's something dangerous and you're not attracting negative energy that knows how to manipulate their hormones to then, deceive you. Because then when you have too much of any hormone, whatever it is, whether it's adrenaline, the fight or flight, or the oxytocin, or something else, you lose discernment. Now, everybody deserves respect. Okay, everybody deserves respect. When they don't respect you, is then they don't deserve, they deserve respect regardless, but then you have to separate yourself and you have to say, okay, I got to separate you. You can't be my world if you can't respect me, right? So that's where your fight or flight. You'll pick and choose your battles based upon the chemistry, your biochemistry. And some of you, you're in a battle every single day because you have that adrenaline hormone prominent. And some of you are all about love and peace and and that, and then you're like, okay, dude, you're that's too much. That's too much sticky honey sweet. I can't deal with that. It triggers me. Because then, if I don't fit within your love hormone, then there's a judgment. So this is the thing. So this is what I've been going through on my newsfeed. And I've been having like all these revelations, and then and then some of you have said stuff on my Facebook, and I got triggered over it. And I look at my triggers because those tell me what is it that I need to examine. What are they communicating to me, and then what's my biochemistry going on? And if people trigger you, then you have to figure out, do you want them in your life? Or if you have them in your life and they're triggering you, what's your goal? Your goal is to change them, to impose your ideal. And sometimes, if they keep me in their life, it means that they're open to me imposing, but they're also going to impose theirs. So, it just depends on what I think the intention. But if somebody triggers you and you figure it out that, you figure out that it's not working for you, it's just too much, then you need to cut ties. Like, you need to cut ties really, truly. So that's, why I wrote a lot of my posts about kindness to animals, and I don't know, and everyone should be kind and everyone should be loving, because that comes from a judgment hormonal perspective. But yesterday, yeah, let me go through my newsfeed real quick just to kind of catch myself up so I don't miss anything. But yesterday, I really discovered what immortality and asexuality is. They're very different. We're discussing on Jilly Juice immortality. We're not trying to revert back to Benjamin Button, the baby-like state where we lose what we've acquired over a course of our lifetime, because that would show that there's a mutation, and that's the aging process. So when you're trying to take Jilly Juice and apply it to asexuality, where we're self-replicating but going back to an infant-like, baby-like state, no, that's the aging process. That's when you lose your faculties and your body starts degrading. So when you're developing, you're taking in nutrients to then acquire knowledge, speaking ability, and ways to protect yourself. And then you reach a level of maturity, and then in the matrix, you're degrading because you're not regenerating cells. You're actually, you're decaying. And then you start losing your faculties. You start losing your ability to speak clearly. You start losing discernment. I mean, there was an article that I saw on CNN that says that the most fake news is being passed around by baby boomers. Well, that doesn't surprise me, because when you're aging, you don't have much discernment. You know, my dad was telling me about the paleo diet. He's on the paleo diet type of thing. And I'm like, Dad, no, forget the paleo diet. You got to do Jilly Juice. But that's what I'm saying. So he's all reading about the paleo diet. I mean, he's still stuck in the holistic world. Will he do Jilly Juice? I've said you should, but I'd be afraid for him, because I'm not there, for him to go through the healing symptoms, and he probably doesn't understand. And I don't know how well he understands. So, I just have to leave it the way it is, because I'm over here and he's over there, and there's a reason, there's reasons why. So, it is what it is. So that makes sense. But yeah, we're not asexual. We're not jellyfish. So yesterday I really made that point that we're not jellyfish. This is a very different biological, biochemical process. Now, there have been people that have argued that, women were the first humans on Earth and that men were a mutation. But is that true? Will we ever get there where women can actually, fertilize their own eggs through their bone marrow? Parthenogenesis? I have no idea. It's interesting to tuck in the back of our minds when we do get to that point. But given that I'm married and my husband still wants to have sex once a week, I will never know. Okay, not that he's like spilling his seeds in me, but you don't know. So if I happen to get pregnant, there's no way for me to know if if it was because of my body or because of him. And then I think I saw something about bone marrow being used to inseminate women. I'm like, so then you have to go through a procedure with biotech. So, if women have been able to have immaculate conception way back when, what were the conditions? So that's way too far out there, too advanced at this point, given that we do have males and females. So I'm not going to look at that we are asexual. We are not asexual, because we're not trying to revert back to an infant-like state where we lose all of our knowledge that we've acquired over like so many years. Okay. So that was one of the points that I made yesterday. And then I made points about healing symptoms of eczema. So that's a Facebook Live video. And then I mentioned about good fences make good neighbors, right? Because you have to have, and I would say right all the time, because that's like a lazy speech, but I'm not trying to like mind control you, just so you guys know. To anyone that's studying my speech saying, oh yeah, she's trying to mind control by saying right. No, I just say it because it's a habit. And maybe I need to pay attention to that habit. So good fences make good neighbors. It speaks to what I talk about when it comes to boundaries. And it comes to, what I need for people to do to follow the path and the process of the protocol and how to communicate with me. I have very specific rules. When you come on my Facebook, you chill out, figure out the room, and then you only contribute support, testimonies, no questions about the protocol. If you have questions about the protocol, get the book, go to my discussion forum, post all your questions there when it comes to the protocol. And then my moderator, Lillian, who is very patient, she will help and take care of you as well as me if I feel I need to. Okay, so there are very specific rules that I have when it comes to implementing Jilly Juice on Facebook and what you need to do to get the right information so you're not passing along wrong information. And so, and then also too, good fences make good neighbors, because yeah, when you leave, when you don't have boundaries, people will come over and knock on your door. They'll say, hey, can I borrow this? Can I borrow that? Hey, I need to bend your ear and talk about all of mama. And then you're just sitting going like, and I've had people do that. I've had zero boundaries, or had a little, had a lacking of boundaries for a while. And I did, impose myself on people. So I actually, disregarded people's boundaries too when I was younger. Okay, so this thing about good fences make good neighbors, even though it may sound political because it has to do with the wall and Trump, but it's a symbolic gesture that says, hey, we have rules, we have things that we have to take care of, and we don't want to be overtaxed by somebody else's emotions or somebody else's needs. Please prove yourself that you are American citizen material. Please prove yourself that you are Jilly Juice material. Not everybody can do Jilly Juice because they have issues that they need to overcome first, which is the fear of pain. If you don't understand pain, then how could you possibly do Jilly Juice? Because pain is a predominant thing that you have to go through, and you have to figure out how to manage that and still do your daily life. Okay, so good fences make good neighbors is an amazing quote that speaks to everything. And so this is where I agree with Trump. Regardless of the politics around it, regardless of whatever's been said and done, we have to have some kind of boundaries in our personal life as well as in our country. And those that are very mutated don't have any boundaries, and they will impose and they will break those boundaries and force themselves upon you. And this is where you as a strong person will have to then create those boundaries and then hold them accountable and you accountable if they violate those boundaries. Okay, so that's why I posted the good fences make good neighbors. And then here we go. Americans aren't making enough babies to replace ourselves. Well, and I'm looking at the Georgia Guidestones, and I'm looking at, maintaining 500 million people in perpetual balance with nature. Well, nature is, with humans, we're not overpopulated because humans die. They may reproduce, and but lately they haven't been reproducing a lot. Not because they're very healthy, because there also doesn't attack on their reproductive system like me. Something attacked my reproductive system to cause my PMDD. Now, I should have gotten pregnant, the last 5 or 10 or 15 years, probably. But the fact that I wasn't says that, it may not be the fact that, it may not be that I was healthy 100%. No, it may be the fact that there was an attack on my reproductive system that caused infertility, or not. I don't know. Or maybe my husband is shooting blanks. But we're not going to get tested to figure out whose fault it is, because we're not having the intention to create a family. So we don't know if is it him, is it me? We don't know, right? So so those of you that are on Jilly Juice across the world. And some people don't even say they're on Jilly Juice. They're just doing it with their kids, and they're doing it, and they're on their own, and they know what's going on because they have discernment. They know how to feed it to their children, know how to do it themselves. So they don't have any questions. So I don't ever hear from them. So I have no idea. But there's probably a lot more people doing Jilly Juice than we even know about. Okay? Are those going to be the 500 million people on this earth are going to be left because those genetic lines out there that are mutated are finally going to take themselves out of existence? Potentially. So, but it's the thought and the consideration is there. So, oh yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is a response to my talk about religion and being pro-life. And then if you're pro-life, but yet you believe in the afterlife, then those two cancel each other out. It doesn't make sense that you say, yeah, I'm pro-life, and this is a politicized agenda, but yet your body is degrading and mutating. You're against the abortion, the abortionists, the people who believe in abortion, but yet you're degrading and you believe that people should die. So it doesn't matter when death happens. Death is death. It's very black and white. Life is very black and white, and death is very black and white. So if you have a religion or a belief that people should die, and then you say you believe in the sanctity of life, there is doublespeak and there's hypocrisy there. Because life is not just this political thing of just a baby. It's also the cells in your body. And if you have dying cells in your body, why would you care about what happens to some baby if you don't even care about yourself? You got to look at yourself first and see if your body and your mind and your spirit are aligned. And there are a lot of people, a lot of religions out there that are not aligned with their body, mind, and spirit at all. They say one thing, but do another. Some may say the Catholic religion speaks to that, where they believe in death. They believe in having 1 million babies, but they believe the babies eventually should die, even if the baby is 80 or 90 years old. That's where I'm saying now with this thing with Jilly Juice, we understand black and white. We're not playing in these gray areas, because the gray areas is a confusion. But there are gray areas in the transition process from believing in a death mentality to a life mentality. But eventually you will be, if you're white, you will eventually turn black if you choose to, not literally, but if you choose to believe in the life trajectory. So this is where I'm thinking that, right now with all of these different religions and thought processes that believe in death, there is a doublespeak. And that's probably why some religions they think that I'm some crazy satanic person. Oh, she's practicing witchcraft because she believes in living forever. Well, if you're so pro-life and you're a born-again Christian or a Christian in general, and you're against the abortionist, but yet you believe that you should die, okay, what's up with that? You got to hold yourself accountable for what you say in your belief system. They need to match. They need to match. So that's where the whole self-righteous thing, like, oh, you're so self-righteous that you're imposing your judgments, yet you don't even walk the walk. So that's, some of the things that I've been noticing. And yeah, it's a little bit in your face, and I might be triggering someone, but I'm doing it for a reason. And I will not be surprised by any of the backlash. But if you're surprised by any backlash of what you say, it means you have lack of awareness of what you're saying and what you're doing. If you expect backlash, then hey, you have an intention, it got met, and it may or may not make a difference, but doesn't matter. You're putting it out there. So, it's just hold yourself accountable for the words that you say, and that's okay. And I am. All right. Yeah, pro-life is 100% the ability to regenerate your vital organs to the point of immortality. If you are mutated, sick, dying, aging, and you claim to be pro-life, please check to see if your body, mind, and spirit are actually aligned. And chances are they are not with this type of mentality. So when you have these people, that are pro-abortion, but they don't believe in or they're pro-abortion, but they think that everyone should live. They don't believe in the war. There's war against your own system right now that you don't even realize. This is where all the politics have an agenda to control you into reacting and being distracted from the real true issue, which is the fact that there's a war inside you that you don't even realize, that you're totally unaware of. Then I posted about the cabbage, one of the most effective foods often used to heal stomach ulcer, detoxify. And then I wrote that when you ferment this with pink Himalayan salt and water, you actually have more access to the nutrients because it's already broken down for you for maximum absorption. You would not get this type of access to nutrition eating it raw on a mutated body. You must ferment this and then heal and seal, and then you can eat it raw as a snack and still derive maximum nutritional absorption. This is why the vegans and vegetarians are dying, because they're eating raw foods, but they're not absorbing the nutrition. And that's why I've always said, get away from the politics of vegan and vegetarian, because they're no different than a carnivore eating on a mutated body. They're both not absorbing nutrition the way they should. And then this quote, crusades with the best intentions leaves you to deal with collateral damage. Examine your crusades before you commit to it. I got that from Designated Survivor, which is another brainwashing station on Netflix that has a look that talks about the president and all that and all the things that they're going through. And it's interesting watching these political dramas, because it kind of gives you a little bit of insight on what sort of goes on in a very theatrical sense. Because, art imitates life, life imitates art. And, maybe those scenarios are not exactly the exact what is going on, because it's a lot deeper out there, you know, at the White House right now, but it kind of gives you an idea. So watching some of these political dramas like West Wing, you know, the Designated Survivor, House of Cards, those are all very interesting. So it's something to, you know, it's fun to watch when you see the mentality of humanity today. And so they do have a little bit of, they drop a few gems here and there too. Oh yeah, and I said people on JGS will have more of an advantage over the people that are not when it comes to the family budget. Right now, there are people in power that are going to tax every single element they can. And the majority of the population are already feeling the weight of the taxes on everything they need to survive. So you're going to see people being upset about the fact that they have to be taxed more on water. They're paying more on their electric bill, more on the water bill, more on other taxes. But they're also eating on a budget of like $500 or $600, and they're dependent upon the government to then supplement, right, for their family, because if the government has a certain formula, if you have like 5 kids and you get this much money. So, you know, people on J-Juice won't really feel dependent on the food stamps if you're poor, because you can live off of cabbage juice, cabbage soup, cabbage this, cabbage that, vegetables, potatoes, carrots, all of that. You don't have to spend the hundreds and hundreds of dollars on processed foods to feed all your parasites and your fungus. So then you'll have more discretionary income. You'll be able to absorb some of the inflation that goes on for whatever reason. Okay, so it's going to help you all around, those of you who are in J-Juice. Okay, so there's that. And then this is the big thing that oh my God, because my mom's a psychotherapist. My mom's psychotherapist. I know what she does. I can tell when she uses some of her psychotherapy stuff on me, which is okay. I know where it comes, because it's hard. When you have a job, it's going to bleed over in your home life and how you interact with your friends and family. No different than a police officer who tries to separate his job into his family, but it's very hard because it's you know, those two will bleed over. You know, you bring home your job. You always do. So I talk about psychological projection. It is a defense mechanism people subconsciously employ in order to cope with difficult feelings or emotions. Psychological projection involves projecting undesirable feelings or emotions onto somebody else rather than admitting to or dealing with an unwanted feeling. Okay, so I see that in people. I do that myself. How we communicate, we project our ideals. Now, if this talks about the negative, but remember, as above, so below, you can also apply the positive. And that comes with context. That comes with the well-balanced biochemistry. So this is what I wrote. When somebody makes an assumption on why you like or don't like something without checking in with you, if their assumption is true, they actually are projecting their own reason onto you, trying to get agreement, as well as they are actually discussing themselves. Psychotherapists do this a lot because they can't help but project what they think is going on with their client through their training, as well as what patients they have dealt with in the past and their own resolved issues. Now, obviously, they're going to ask their client questions, but through their background and their training and all the patients prior and their own stuff, all of that's going to come out in the advice that they give their clients. And then they'll find ways to take natural responses based upon the biochemistry of that client and their own biochemistry and manipulate them into getting a certain outcome, a certain desired behavior to come forth, because they're trained by the state. And here's the thing: don't try to call them on it. Just smile to yourself and say that's their own reason, and you can call them up. But is it worth it if they will only deny it? Therapy is taking the natural responses of the human body. So whatever is going on in your biochemistry, you're taking that natural response and the person and manipulating them to get a specific result. Psychotherapists are trained by the state to live and act a certain way under a strict moral code. And this is what they project onto their client, who happens to work outside of the moral code, needing to come back within a moral code. That's why they go see a therapist, because they're feeling really weird and they're not flying right. So they go see a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist to get them to fly right so they can manage living in our society. This is why projection can be used for good and for bad relative to the vessel or the mental health of the therapist. Now that's what I came up with, because you are going to project a reflection of what it is that's going on inside of you. And when you look at your Facebook posts, that will tell everybody, what you say tells everybody the chaos or the peace that is within you. But don't let all the love, love, love tell you that this person's peaceful, because that tells you that this person also is hormonal and they have an overproduction of oxytocin. And then they're just trying to, and they're saying, oh, everybody should be peaceful, everybody should be loving, everyone should do this, love everybody, love, love, love. And everyone should be kind to animals. And they're posting all of these horrible animal, abuse photos. And you're like, oh my God, they're posting these horrible abuse, animal photos, or what people are doing. And they say, nobody should do this. And I'm like, well, that's a given. Why are you posting this? Oh, wait, hold on. You have chaos inside of you. Because if you can even look at those type of pictures, you have chaos inside of you. If you have to tell people to not to be kind, if you have to tell people to be kind to animals, it means that you're struggling with that yourself, that you have to tell that to people. And you're also entertaining people who are unkind to animals. You have those people in your life, and you're trying to legislate morals onto them. When in reality, it's an assumption. If you are a well-balanced person, right, you don't have to say be kind to animals, don't harm an animal. But the fact that you have to say it says that you're struggling with that. And I'm not saying that you're going to be unkind to animals, but you're teetering on the fact that maybe one day you're going to not be. So you have to keep getting agreement and keep reinforcing this type of idea. What is it? You're intellectualizing something that you should already know, and people around you should already know if they're well balanced. If they're not, then you can't force them to be kind to an animal. If that's not how they grew up, you can't. So you then surround yourself with people who are like you. So that way you're not having to say, be kind to animals, be kind to each other. I say, hey, the reason why you have, and this is where, let me find this. And this is one of the latest or the post that I said about oxytocin. Oxytocin equals kindness. Adrenaline equals unkind. Which hormone is better? None is better. You have a combination of both relative to your biochemistry and relative to your surroundings, the triggers. If you're constantly getting triggered by somebody else's moral code, then maybe you should get out of that environment that keeps triggering you to say, hey, be kind to animals. Hey, be kind to each other. If someone says that to me, and then I got triggered by this because someone, when I put about projection and how what we reflect out there and everything, right, is a reflection of ourselves. And this person put, oh, and be kind. And I got triggered by that. And that's why I posted this. Because what she's saying is that if you're not kind and coming from an oxytocin point of view, then it means that you're unkind, and that then she's going to cast a judgment. When in reality, sometimes you need to be what would be construed as, because what is unkind? People have a very, very different perception on what kindness is and what unkindness is. When you enable somebody learned helplessness because you're always being kind and accommodating, that's a very passive-aggressive way to control somebody. Is that really kind? When you're always giving yourself at the detriment of yourself? Or is establishing boundaries? And when you establish your boundaries, someone could say that's unkind. So it's all left to perception. So here it is. Why even say it at all? What are you imposing? It's a very vague way of trying to impose morals onto people that don't even know what the hell that means. You don't know what kindness or unkindness means in their world. How would they even know what that even means? So I'm just like, okay, I may come off as unkind. And if that is the case, then guess what? Separate yourself from me. You don't need me triggering you. It means that our biochemistries are not aligned. You need to take up and leave. Okay? If you think that I'm unkind. Because no one should be triggered on a constant basis. But if you see that what I have to say has some validity, then that's why you're still in my world. Why am I allowing you in my world that has a judgment whether or not I'm unkind or not, or I'm patient or this? because I'm hoping that, you know, what I'm saying, because you see some validity in what I say about the Jelly Juice protocol and the possibility for you. So I'm hoping that you will catch on and you not keep imposing all of your views, and that you are going through a process. And I am willing to be patient and say, okay, that's great. Not saying that I'm the end all be all, but I have a very specific view of the world based upon what the future holds for all of us that are on Jelly Juice. And are you keeping up, or are you going to be continuously hanging back, being a peanut gallery thingy of oh, you know, slipping in your views here and there, which, okay, fine, but eventually I'll get tired of it and I'll just cut you off because I don't see you really improving, and you're triggering me. So when you trigger me over a certain period of time, I'm going to eventually cut it off, okay? And if I'm triggering you, you need to make that decision to cut me off. And people have, and that's okay. They are protecting themselves for whatever reason. But if you see I have validity, then obviously I'm around for a reason, right? But then eventually I'll make the choice. If you can't seem to get with the program, then I'll be like, okay, I don't need to see these, you know, whatever here. So anyway, so that's what I'm saying, is that, you know, there's reasons why you have adrenaline. There's reasons why you have oxytocin, and you can't always speak with kindness. Sometimes you're going to say things that's not going to come off as kind because this person wants you to be all like this way, and they're trying to impose the way you should be. And in reality, that's not the case. We have things that go on in our lives, and sometimes we have to check ourselves. And sometimes I'll respond, you know, based upon whatever biochemistry. If I've gone too far, I'll circle back and say, okay, I'm so sorry. But I mean, and this is where the communication, you know, where I was talking about with Glenn St. Penn about, you know, how are we going to respond now in the future to anything? Well, yeah, you respond with information, respond with whatever your views are. You establish boundaries. What you post, is it leave people empowered or disempowered? Are you promoting fear all the time with your conspiracy stuff, or are you promoting giving people a way out that, yes, this may happen. Yes, we may have a government shutdown, and it may affect your paychecks. It may affect how much money you spend on food, but here's a solution. Hey, I put a solution. Cabbage soup, vegetable soup. Get on the protocol. If you're furloughed, get on the protocol. This would be a perfect time to introduce something like this, so that way you're not spending so much money on food. Okay, if you're a SNAP person, most likely you're spending way too much money on food. Yeah, you can't force your family to go to cabbage soup, but hey, when it comes down to, you know, when it comes down to being independent, yeah, okay, you can go to a pantry and they'll have all their big, huge slabs of meat and all that. Okay, fine. But how do you know those pantries are going to be there to have the food that you're used to having? Or maybe it's time to change your biochemistry so you're not dependent on $1,000 a month for food. That's a freaking lot. Okay? So, you know, leave people empowered instead of leaving them feeling like they're hopeless. And this is what people with the 5G, the activists, they leave people hopeless. Or they share my website with no incentive of why a person should be doing the protocol. I see half-ass, you know, people that say, oh yeah, okay, I believe what you're saying, and they're still in the activist world, and they half-ass share my website, and they don't put any testimony of why to do the website and why this Jelly Juice won't have to leave you in fear of the 5G or the chemtrails or anything else, which really isn't a problem. But these mentalities, these circling of the looping of the fear of the different hormones that are in control, see it as a problem because it's a problem within themselves. So yeah, so I do get triggered, and some of you have triggered me, and eventually I'm going to be cutting off the ones that trigger me. You'll know if I get triggered by you because I will come back with you with a comment as well as then a post, and I talk about it. So I'm going to, you know, I'm putting people on notice, okay? Don't try to say that, don't try to impose your ideals onto me on my Facebook. I will say this, you know, this is what I'm looking and doing, and this is some of the information, and take it or leave it. That's all I say. So when you're communicating, regardless of what you're communicating and how you communicate, check to see what hormone is in control. That will tell you what's in control. right? So, you know, I mean, look, I am a reflection of my surroundings. You know, my biochemistry does get affected by who it is I let in my life. So when you see me act in a certain way, it's because I'm responding to somebody else's biochemistry. And if your biochemistry is aligned with mine, then I won't be responding in a way that may seem hormonal. Okay, so that's what I'm saying is check your hormones. First of all, check to see what hormones in control when you're posting stuff, and then how it is that you're reacting to stuff, to certain people. And if that certain person keeps triggering you, you know, and this other person doesn't, then it tells you this other person is aligned with your protocol and aligned with your biochemistry, and this other person isn't, and they haven't got with the program, and they're going to still keep triggering you. And do you really want to have that kind of negativity in your life? Sounds so cliche, right? Okay, so yeah, I mean, so this is what I posted. When we post, we must be kind to animals. That's a given upon a well-balanced biochemistry. It doesn't need to be said, because if you're in a pro-life body, it's going to be assumed. The fact that you have to say we must be kind to animals and we must speak with kindness, we must be this and we must be that, says that it is a struggle on your end, and that something may happen on your end where you're not going to be kind to your animal or be kind to humans. That's a sign of a hormonal imbalance when you post about animals being hurt, and then you post about everyone should be kind to animals. That's the reason why people say things. It's because they're imposing an ideal that isn't happening for them and in their life, which means that they have the wrong friends in their life, and they're entertaining the wrong type of information because it's constantly triggering them, triggering a hormone. Kindness and unkindness to people and animals based upon biochemistry. Have you ever seen me post about people should be kind to animals, except maybe once? When I talk about your animal is your responsibility, not anybody else. So I don't even talk about being kind to animals, because that's already a given. It's about that your animal is your responsibility. You should not be giving other people the responsibility of taking care of your animal. That should be your first and foremost. I know I'm saying should, but really, if you take on a dependent, whatever it is, then that is your first and foremost priority. They depend upon you. Your animals and your kids depend upon you. Now, if you're in a dire straits, I can understand. But where was, you know, I mean, but if there's dire straits, like, you know, you're in jail. Well, not even that if you're in jail. Well, yeah, if you're in jail or you're in a car accident, then you get things set up to, you know, then yeah, you have to have, you know, people do things for you and help you out. But if not, if everything that happened in your life was already, you know, planned out in some way, you already knew, then yeah, you get things set up prior. So when you teach a child to be kind to animals, that's a little bit different. That also has to do with child's biochemistry. If a child is hurting an animal or killing animals, then there's something wrong with that child. That's a red flag. Okay? If the child is abusing an animal, that's a red flag. There's something going on with that child. But if a child is so, like, you know, and children can be very loving too, and that's great, because you need to be loving, because you don't want them to be a hateful person, but you don't want them to be so loving where they lack discernment and then they turn into, you know, a pleasure-seeking female, which can lead to very crazy consequences. You know, early pregnancy, everything else, STDs, right? So if you have to tell adults to be kind to animals, it's going to fall on deaf ears, because they have no idea what that means if they've been raised to abuse animals. The people in your life, literally, you know, I'm sure people in your life are already kind to animals. And if they're not, what is you telling them be kind to animals going to do? What is you telling people to be kind? What is that going to do? What does that mean? People do things based upon their biochemistry, and it's not always going to be kind in your eyes. Can you deal with it? And if you don't like the way they interact with you, if you don't like the way they speak, if you don't like anything, then you know, cut them off. And then get some peace in your life. Even if you have chaos. If I am causing unpeace in your life, then cut me off. Okay? So, and it doesn't matter it doesn't matter if you're well balanced or not. If I cause chaos in your life, whatever that is, then you need to cut me off. And no different to me. If you cause chaos in my life where I'm getting triggered by you, but then sometimes these triggers are good because it is a lesson. But if you keep making me talk about the same lesson as the same repeat offender, then they don't get it. And then this is where I cut people off. Not because I'm trying to be mean, no, because I'm not getting peace. And it's all about having peace in your life and going to war when you need to. Okay? So, that's something to think about. But yeah, with the whole thing with, so when people communicate, they're projecting either an ideal or they're projecting an insecurity. And that's sort of a hard thing. So you're trying to figure out. So when you're looking at your Facebook feed, and I do it too, and I'm going to be doing it too. I'm going to look at where they're coming from. Are they projecting an ideal? Okay, which means that they're trying to teach somebody something. Or are they projecting an insecurity? And if you're projecting an insecurity, what are you going to do to make it an ideal? That's the key thing. So when you're posting about conspiracy stuff, or you're posting about, all the chemtrails, that's an insecurity on your end that you can't seem to wrap your mind around, because really humans are very self-sufficient if they want to be. But your biochemistry tells you exactly your belief system. Okay? And there was a thing I posted about that. Hold on, let's see. I know I posted about ideal and insecurity. Here we go. When we communicate, what are we projecting onto others and why? All communication to others are a reflection of our internal conversation, trying to confirm our own insecurity and ideals, looking for agreement. Okay? And then this is where I think I got triggered on this. So interesting. So I figured out that all the communication comes from either our own ideals we want to project onto others, or our own insecurities we want to project onto others. Okay? And the English language allows us to hide behind very colorful words, so it's easy to be deceptive in our intentions. Once we own that's not about the other people, it's about what we want for ourselves, we can actually start taking personal accountability. We are the only ones that can reverse our insecurities so we can feel secure. And we are the only ones that can create the ideals we truly want. Humans are very selfish because we want to create a world that is ideal to us. Whatever our perception is based upon the condition of our vessel, our body, mind, and spirit. So, and this is where I got triggered. Speak kindly as we speak to ourselves as well as others. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And that's when I posted that response about oxytocin equals kindness, adrenaline equals unkind. Which hormone is better? None. Just communicate without trying to impose your ideal hormone onto others. And so, because when we communicate, what are we trying to say? And this is where we have to be very clear in our communication. Or we leave things. Now, maybe she never intended this, but she left it up to interpretation or misinterpretation. When you leave things up for interpretation or misinterpretation, you're going to get a reaction from somebody, whatever that is. And maybe she was surprised, because then she goes, Jillian, straight up. That was it. But I'm sure she was surprised by my response, but she didn't let on. That's okay. But this is what I want us to start looking at, is that when we impose what we think is correct on someone else's Facebook, what hormone, and this is about empowerment, Sometimes you're not going to speak kindly. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you're not going to say something that's going to be kind in that person's world. Maybe it needs to be said and it may seem like it's unkind. That's what I'm saying. So when we speak from those vague, we're leaving things to interpretation, because what does kind mean? What does maturity mean? What do these words actually mean? And some of these words that we have out there can be have different meanings to different people. So that's why we say we have these hormones for a reason, and they will come out based upon who it is that's triggering you. So, but if you're responding or coming from a hormonal type of like an ideal or an insecurity, then the next thing you have to figure out is, are you leaving people empowered? And that's probably very advanced, because I even struggle with this. But my predominant way I'm communicating now is giving people the power to be able to reverse and have some control over their insecurities to create an ideal world. That's what my communication is I'm communicating an ideal, and I am also annotating the insecurities, but I'm giving people the solution of sorts to be able to overcome those insecurities so they can have the ideal and to understand boundaries. Because I'll tell you what, if I were to live in a super dramatic environment, super drama type environment, I would never be able to heal, because I'd be constantly reacting to all of the hormonal based, actions and reactions from my environment. That's what war is. It's chaos. It's hormones that are always continuously being created. When you're always continuously talking about, your legal case, or you're always talking about the corruption, in your government, when you're always talking about the anti-vax, pro-vax stance, when you're always talking about the GMO versus organic, when you're an activist, then you're always inducing hormones. And it's a pleasure hormone as well as a fight or flight. And how are you going to heal when you're constantly fighting all the time? How are you going to heal? And it's an addiction too. So then Glenn's like, well, what's the future? How do you respond with that emotion? Well, I mean, look, you get rid of the triggers in your life and then start focusing on your goals and your dreams. And you start helping your friends and family around you to achieve their goals and dreams and figure out what stops them, so they can be, I don't say the happiest, but they can be the most successful person in whatever they think a success is. Maybe their goal is to be a top chef, or, I don't know, the best psychologist in the world. I don't know. I mean, that's what I see the future. That maybe we don't even need psychologists. We can eradicate that industry altogether, because we'll have well-balanced people. So, what does the future hold? Well, we're still creating it. But we have to recognize what drives us first before we can create the future that we want. If we don't recognize what drives us, then how do we know? And so, so it's very easy to intellectualize what's right and wrong. And that's why we have people, that's why some of these programs out there that intellectualize right or wrong, that, for criminals, some may get it, or they'll go from one extreme to the other. Others will be like, okay, yeah, I get it. And then they'll still keep doing what they do, because you can't legislate morals onto somebody that has a very, very crazy biochemistry. There's no freaking way. So it doesn't even matter what you say. Maybe something that would reach them to have them make a behavioral change, but they really have to have their backs against the wall to make a major behavioral change, because they're getting something from their lifestyle until they're not getting it anymore. And that's when people change, is when they're not getting that benefit anymore. And that right now is different for everybody. So that's why I say, there's no reason to say that people should be this, and that. I'm kind to my animal because it's naturally I'm kind to my animal. No one needs to tell me be kind to my animal, because I am kind to my animal. I don't beat her. I may get stern with her if she does something that I don't want her to do, but I will never, ever beat my animal. No one should ever beat their animal into submission. And if you have to beat your animal, it means you and your animal both have major biochemical issues. But people will, because they have chaos inside of their body, and their animal has chaos. They're feeding off each other's hormones. And yeah, it's a clusterfuck right there. That's why I say animals are very aware of hormones. That's what they react upon. When that animal came down my street that was running away from their owner, and this owner was going up and down my street with his car with the door open, trying to get his dog, and it was like a big black lab type. And the dog was loping through the yard, sniffing, going like, ooh, freedom, wahaha. And I'm like, oh my God. There's a busy street down this way, and this is some of a busy street over here. He's trying to keep him within these houses, between the streets. And I'm like, dude, it's only it's going to be sometime only a matter of time before a big truck comes down, you know, and kills this dog. So I'm like, okay, I got to do something. So I went out there and I saw that they're all the way at the end. And then the guy started going back because the dog was following him. He just didn't want to jump in the car. And so I came out of my door and saw that they were coming this way. And the dog was heading my way, going down the street because the guy was in reverse with his car. And I just stood out there like a, you know, just like a solid force in the wind, right? God. And I looked the dog in the eye, which they say you shouldn't do that, but I did. And I put my hand out. The dog kind of lunged for me, but it didn't bite me, but kind of lunged for me because he knew I wasn't dangerous. I was very steadfast. I was a calm presence. The dog recognized that. And then the guy's car was like right next to me. And so the dog came towards me, and I kind of pet him, the dog on the back, on the head and on the back. And the dog, you know, went towards the car and then came back towards me. And then I grabbed a hold of the collar. Because I tried to get the collar to begin with. The dog kind of like veered off, like bounced off me a little bit, and then went towards the car and then backed away from the car because the car was right there on the street, you know, perpendicular to me. Not perpendicular. It was, yeah, the opposite of that. And then I was able to get the collar, and I had the dog. And then I gave to the owner. So the dog recognized, so the dog was playing off the owner's hormones. So the dog was thinking it was in play mode because the owner was all in adrenaline, like, oh my God, my dog, right? And the dog was like, oh my God, yes, because dogs are instinctual. They pick up on the energy or the hormones of their owners, and they act accordingly. So yeah, so my dog and I have a great relationship. And, you know, when we go into our next house, so you guys know I'm going to be moving at some point. We're going to make sure that I'm going to have protectors on my couches downstairs, and she's not going to go on the couch upstairs because my husband doesn't want to have any more holes in the couch. And I think the reason why we have holes in our couch, because yeah, she was going through a biochemical process. It changed when, you know, when I put her on the protocol, and she used to destroy tennis balls. So she had a lot of anxiety. She doesn't destroy tennis balls anymore. She doesn't do that anymore. It's crazy. I have all these tennis balls all over the house that I used to kind of give her to keep her occupied, but she doesn't do that anymore. As far as the couches, well, the couches are already destroyed anyways because of the anxiety and her biochemistry in the beginning. So now, you know, when we do move and get new furniture, you know, I will make sure that she doesn't have those types of destructive behaviors. And I will find a way to, you know, I'm not going to beat her, but I will find a way to make sure that she understands that, you know, she has to stay off this couch. Now, there's going to be a chair that her and I are going to be on. So when we can cuddle together, because that'll be, you know, the downstairs and, you know, our living space where her and I can hang out. And then my husband will have his own, you know, room where it has all of his furniture and everything. And the dog isn't allowed on there. So that's fine. Because Jason wants nice furniture, and I don't mind sitting in holes. I'm like, he's like, I want nice things. I'm like, okay, that's fine. You know, because it is a dog-centered household. But my dog has gone through her healing process, and she's definitely come out on top. So yeah, hormones / energy is what animals and people pick up on. And so you'll see, you know, when someone gets triggered by you, or when you get triggered by somebody, it's because their hormone is predominant, and then your hormone's going to come out, and then you have to figure out, do you want to really have that hormone being triggered on you? That's when you need to separate yourself from people who trigger you. So that's why pay attention to your triggers, because that will tell you who it is you need to keep in your life. Good morning, Krista. Okay, pay attention to what triggers you. Right now, people who are so mutated don't even understand their own body, much less understand the triggers and the hormones that, you know, they just let anybody in, or they just react and they think it's all normal, right? So that's why every single time I get triggered, I have a post about it, and I talk about it, and I explore it, and I dissect it. Like, seriously, I dissect it, because that's the way in which we can understand how we work and then how humanity works, so we can then change the trajectory of humanity. Pay attention to what you focus on, and you're getting a lot of pleasure from focusing on all your problems, and you're addicted to your hormones. You have an addiction, because hormones can be very addictive. That's why people that work out are addicted to that pleasure hormone. Thank you, Doreen. So yeah, I'm very aware now of what triggers me, and I will explore it, and I will dissect it. And then you will know if you triggered me or not, because you will see my response. And if I get triggered by you a lot, then maybe you need to just chill on the comments and make sure they're 100% in support, not in judgment. Oh, be kind, speak with kindness, this and this. What does that mean? Come on. We're not trying to impose the oxytocin hormone onto people. We're not trying to be an empath. Okay? I'm not trying to support that type of behavior, because empaths, passive aggressive, because it is a way to manipulate someone into doing things because you're throwing so much love onto them. Okay, so be aware of the empaths in your life, because they have a certain amount of control that they're trying to do, and that's okay. That's the way they operate. And then be very aware of the people who are always on adrenaline, fight or flight, always. And you see them all over your Facebook. They're always posting about the craziness in Washington. They're always posting about conspiracy stuff. They're always posting about how they hate, Trump or Pelosi or Chuck or all that, Pay attention. Those people are on adrenaline. And then that will degrade them over time. The activists, always on adrenaline. Cell degradation. There's ways to educate people without triggering them into an emotion. There are ways to educate. And you'll know by the response that you get. When you see someone responding to you with emotion or with a hormone, it means that you triggered them. It means that you didn't keep your hormones in check. So the people around you are a reflection of you. Who you entertain in your life and how you act towards them is a reflection of you. That's the biggest thing that I've realized that I'm coming to terms with. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. Okay. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.